Hello everyone, I am Dr. Sudhir. Today our topic of discussion is vector spaces. The two terms scalars and vectors come together to our mind. These are familiar to you in the lower classes. In today's discussion, we make a passage from vectors to vector spaces and from matrices to linear transformations. As the prerequisites, we need the matrix methods to solve systems of linear equations. A scalar is understood as a physical quantity having only magnitude or as an element of a field. A field will be a new term to you. It's a non-empty set F in which there are two binary operations usually denoted by plus and dot representing the addition and multiplication of elements satisfying certain conditions. F with plus is an abelian group. It's an additive abelian group. The non-zero elements of F with dot is an abelian group. It's a multiplicative group. The addition and multiplication satisfy the distributive property a plus b dot c equal to a dot c plus b dot c for all a, b, c in F. We write the triple F plus dot to denote a field. With usual addition and multiplication, the sets of rational numbers, real numbers, and complex numbers are fields. A vector is understood either as a physical quantity having magnitude and direction or as a directed line segments. Vectors can be added together. There are vector addition rules, namely the triangle law of vector addition and parallelogram law of vector addition, and their size can be changed by scalar multiplication. What is the parallelogram law of vector addition? Suppose you have two vectors u and v. The vector u is represented by the line segment OA and vector v is represented by the line segment OB. Both the vectors start at the common point O, which is the origin now we have taken, and if we complete the parallelogram OACB with the two given vectors OA and OB as adjacent sides, then the diagonal of the parallelogram OC will represent the sum of the two vectors OA and OB. So we write OA plus OB equal to OC, the diagonal of the parallelogram. That is the parallelogram law of vector addition. Suppose you have the vector addition 2OA plus OB. So OA is the vector u. 2 times OA means the direction will be same as that of OA and magnitude will be twice that of the vector OA. So you get the vector OD, and OB is the vector we have considered earlier. Now to find the sum of these two, 2OA and OB, you consider the parallelogram with OD and OB as sides. So we complete the parallelogram ODEB, and the diagonal OE will be the sum 2OA and OB. So we say 2OA plus OB equal to OE. Suppose you consider OA plus 1.5 OB. So OA is the earlier vector itself, and 1.5 OB will be a vector in the direction of OB, but the magnitude is a little increased. So you get the vector OF. The sum of the two vectors OA and 1.5 OB will be the diagonal of the parallelogram OG of the parallelogram OAGF. So we say OA plus 1.5 OB equal to OG, where OG is the diagonal of the parallelogram OAGF. One can have the corresponding figure for the vector addition 2OA plus 1.5 OB also. So you have 2OA, it's the vector OD, and 1.5 OB is the vector OF, and you complete the parallelogram ODEF. The diagonal OE will be the sum 2OA plus 1.5 OB. Let us see what will happen if we think of a reverse to the parallelogram law of vector addition. Suppose the vectors OA and OB be given, and suppose we choose any vector OP, draw lines through the point P and parallel to the vectors OA and OB. So we do CP parallel to the vector OB and DP parallel to the vector OA. And these two parallels will intersect the line containing OA at the point C and the line containing the vector OB at the point D. Now, if you take the vector OC and OD, their sum will be OP by our earlier discussion. Now, what is OC? OC will be a suitable multiple of OA, and OD will be another multiple of OB. So we can say the vector OP is sum of the vectors OA and OD, or it will be the sum of a suitable multiple of OA and a suitable multiple of the vector OB. If the corresponding multiples are taken as alpha OA and beta OB, then we can say that OP equal to alpha OA plus beta OB. If we take the standard unit vectors I and j in the places of the vectors OA and OB, we get the usual concept of position vectors representing points in terms of the rectangular Cartesian coordinates. If we take the standard unit vectors, then we get the position vectors. Okay, any two vectors can be chosen in the places of OA and OB. So you get the vector OP resolved into the directions of the two vectors OA and OB chosen as per your convenience. For the two vectors u and v in R2, can we interpret u plus v geometrically? The vector u will correspond to a point A, and vector v will correspond to a point B on the plane. If the coordinates of the point A is AB and that of B is CD, we can say the vector u will represent the point AB and the vector v will represent the point CD. By parallelogram law of vector addition, the vector sum u plus v can be visualized as the point A plus C B plus D. This leads to a meaning for the addition of ordered pairs. Actually, we observe that the points on the plane are vectors itself. In the parallelogram OACB, O00 is the origin. So I am referring to the previous figure we saw. O is the origin, A is the point AB, B is the point CD, and C will be the sum of the ordered pairs, and that is A plus C, B plus D. And that point C will represent the vector u plus v. So, vectors and points in two-dimensional or three-dimensional spaces are one and the same. This is leading to the concept of position vectors. If we observe the properties of vector addition and scalar multiplication, the following facts are immediate. 1. The sum of two vectors is a vector. The addition satisfies the associativity and commutativity. A zero vector exists uniquely, which when added to any vector makes no change to the vector. That means addition with zero vector won't change the vector we consider. A negative of vectors exists uniquely, and if you add a vector with its negative, we get the zero vector. Scalar multiple of a vector is a vector. Scalar multiple possesses the properties alpha multiplied to u plus v equal to alpha u plus alpha v. Alpha plus beta multiplied to the vector u is equal to alpha u plus beta u. And alpha multiplied to beta u is equal to alpha beta multiplied to u, and that is equal to beta multiplied to alpha u. The same properties can be observed for points in R2 and R3 also. So, we are in a stage to define a vector space. Let X be a non-empty set and F be a field. X is called a vector space over F if for elements x by z in the set X and for elements alpha beta in the field F, there is an addition plus of elements in X and a multiplication between elements of F and X satisfying 1. X with addition to be an abelian group. Alpha X belong to X. That means a scalar multiplied with a vector is a vector. If alpha equal to 1, the unit element of the field, then alpha X equal to X. If alpha equal to 0, the 0 element of the field, then alpha X equal to 0, the 0 vector in X. See, the 0 written here and the 0 written here are different. One here 0 element of F is a scalar, and here 0 element of X is the 0 vector. Alpha multiplied to X plus Y equal to alpha X plus alpha Y. Alpha plus beta multiplied to X equal to alpha X plus beta X. Alpha multiplied to beta X equal to alpha beta multiplied to X, and that is equal to beta multiplied to alpha X. We look at some of the examples of vector spaces. Set of real numbers is a vector space. So you can have X equal to R and F equal to R there. Set of points on the real plane is a vector space. In that, X equal to R2 and F equal to R. Set of points in the real three-dimensional space is a vector space. There, X equal to R3 and F equal to R. Set of real-valued functions on some set. See, if you take the set of functions to be X and F equal to R, then X will be a vector space. Set of real matrices is a vector space, and in that case, X is a set of matrices and F is the field of real numbers. Set of real polynomials on some variable X. So polynomial addition you have, and you don't need multiplication of polynomials because in the vector space you need the addition of vectors only. So X is equal to set of polynomials and F equal to R. In all these, I have taken the field to be the field of real numbers. And we can as well take the field to be the set of complex numbers or rational numbers. And if X is a field, then surely F must be a subfield of X. The process of resolving a vector along any two vectors on a plane gives a new idea. A vector can be expressed in terms of the two vectors chosen. If u and v are chosen, we have already seen that a vector r can be written as r equal to alpha u plus beta v, where alpha and beta are suitable scalars or elements of the field. In this case, we say r is a linear combination of the vectors u and v. Linear combination can be defined for any number of vectors. So if x1, x2, etc. xn are vectors and alpha1, etc. alpha n are scalars, then the vector alpha1 x1 plus alpha to x2 plus etc. plus alpha n xn is called a linear combination. As an example, any vector representing a point on the real plane can be seen as a linear combination of the vectors I and j, and that's the usual practice of writing a vector on the plane as xi plus yj if the initial point of the vector is origin and the end point is the point xy. Also, any vector representing a point in the three-dimensional space can be seen as a linear combination of the vectors I, j and k. Now, there is a new definition, linear dependence and linear independence. Let x1 etc. xn be vectors, alpha 1 etc. alpha n be scalars. We say the vectors are linearly independent if alpha 1 x1 plus alpha 2 x2 plus etc. plus alpha n xn equal to 0 will imply all the coefficients alpha 1 etc. alpha n are 0. The vectors are said to be linearly dependent if there exist scalars alpha 1 etc. alpha n with at least one is non-zero and still the linear combination is 0. The vectors I, j and k are linearly independent, and this follows clearly from the concepts of position vectors and equality of vectors. I'll just outline what will be the steps. Alpha I plus beta j plus gamma k equal to 0 implies the 0 vector on the right side can be written as 0 I plus 0 j plus 0 k. Now you just compare the coefficients, you will get alpha equals 0, beta equals 0 and gamma equal to 0. Now, from the definition of linear dependence and independence, it is clear that linearly independent vectors are always non-zero vectors. In other words, a set involving zero vector cannot be thought of as linearly independent. A collection of vectors containing zero vector will be linearly dependent. Now, linear span of vectors. Let x1 etc. xn be vectors. The set of all linear combinations of the vectors is called a linear span of the vectors x1 etc. xn. It is denoted by the square bracket of the set x1 etc. xn. The concept of position vectors tell us that R2 is the linear span of the vectors I and j. R3 is the linear span of the vectors I, j and k. A set of non-zero vectors in a vector space is said to be a basis. It's an important concept in vector spaces, a basis, if it is a linearly independent set spanning the vector space. The number of vectors in a basis is called the dimension of the vector space. There is a word of precaution in the case the set is an infinite set. That means if a vector space has got a basis consisting of infinitely many vectors. But we consider the case of finite dimensions only in this discussion. That means we won't consider vector spaces having bases consisting of infinitely many vectors. Now the question is, can a vector space have more than one basis? This question is answered partially in a geometrical way in the case of R2. See, in the case of R2, we have already remarked that I and j can generate or span any vector in R2. See, instead of I and j, if you take some other vectors u and v on the real plane, you could write the vector R as a linear combination of u and v. And we remark that in the places of u and v, you can take any vector. That means any pair of vectors having certain qualities can be thought of as a basis for R2. So, R2 can have more than one basis. And this happens for any vector space. If two vectors are chosen in these directions, then any vector can be written as a linear combination of the two vectors. That is a fact we observed when a vector is resolved in two desired directions. Now, how can we check a given set of vectors is linearly independent? This is explained in the case of R2 using a pair of linear equations, and whatever we do here can be extended to the case of 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions or whatever be it. The same theory works in all the vector spaces. Let x equal to x1, x2 and y equal to y1, y2 be two vectors chosen in R2. Let a linear combination alpha x plus beta y equal to 0. This can be written in the form of a matrix equation as the matrix x1, y1, x2, y2 multiplied to the column matrix A alpha beta equal to the column matrix 0, 0. And this is a homogeneous system of linear equations converted into a matrix equation. Here, taking the coefficient matrix or x1, x2, x1, y1, x2, y2 as A, capital X to be the column matrix alpha beta and capital B equal to the column matrix 0, 0, the given situation, that is alpha x plus beta y equal to 0, the linear combination equal to 0, takes the form of the matrix equation Ax is equal to B. Now, for x equal to x1, x2 and y equal to y1, y2 to be linearly independent, from the above linear combination we should get both alpha and beta to be 0. In that case, the homogeneous system can have only 0 solution. But when will be a homogeneous system will have only 0 solution? For that, the coefficient matrix must be non-singular. So if the coefficient matrix A, x1, y1, x2, y2 is non-singular, then you get the system to have only 0 solution or the vectors x and y to be linearly independent. So that is the condition. X equal to x1, x2, y equal to y1, y2 will be linearly independent vectors in R2 if the matrix obtained by writing these vectors as columns or rows to be a non-singular matrix. The vectors I and j are linearly independent, we have already seen, and they play a special role in R2. For these elements of R2, we can have the notations 1, 0 or the column matrix 1, 0. So that represents the vector, unit vector I, and similarly the ordered pair 0, 1 or the column matrix 0, 1 will represent the unit vector j. And in R3, similar notations are there. I is represented by the triple 1, 0, 0 or the column matrix 1, 0, 0. 0, 1, 0 will be the representation for j or the column matrix 0, 1, 0. Similarly, for the vector k, the representation will be the triple 0, 0, 1 or the column matrix 0, 0, 1. The set of points on the real plane is a vector space. Already we have remarked. So because the importance of I and j you have already seen, the 2 points 1, 0 and 0, 1 are of particular importance in the set of points on the real plane. And these 2 points are called the standard basis vectors. In the language of vectors, these are the unit vectors I and j. Any point xy on the plane can be written as xy equal to x multiplied to 1, 0 plus y multiplied to 0, 1, or the right side x into 1, 0 plus y into 0, 1 is a linear combination of the vectors 1, 0 and 0, 1 or the ordered pairs 1, 0 and 0, 1. Now, it's very clear that all vectors can be written as linear combination of basis vectors. For a vector space, it is possible to find more than one set of basis vectors. In the case of R2, the plane, we know 1, 0 and 0, 1 are 2 basis vectors, because if you write the matrix corresponding to these 2, you get the identity matrix, and it is non-singular because its determinant is 1. Suppose you consider the vectors 1, 2 and 2, 3. 1, 2 and 2, 3, when you write it, you will get the determinant to be non-zero, or the two vectors will form a basis. So, if AB and CD are taken, and if the determinant of the matrix ABCD is non-zero, we get AB and CD to be a basis. Otherwise, they will not form a basis. If 2 points or vectors AB and CD form a basis of R2, then we say that the two vectors are linearly independent. Geometrically, this means that the line joining origin and one point, and that the line joining origin and the other point are having different slopes. So that's the meaning of the two vectors are linearly independent. The line containing one vector will not contain the other vector, or the lines containing the two vectors forming a basis of R2 will have different slopes. In a vector space, the number of vectors in a basis is known as the dimension of the vector space. That already we have remarked. We shall look at the vector spaces and linear combination in a different way. For this, consider the way of writing a system of linear equations as a matrix equation. We have studied the method of solving a system of linear equations using matrices. The simplest case is when the number of equations and number of variables are equal. And in that too, we consider a system involving two variables only. So, consider the pair of linear equations x minus y equal to 1 and x plus 2y equal to 4. This can be written in the form Ax is equal to b, and where A is the coefficient matrix 1 minus 1, 1, 2, and x is the matrix of the variables, the column matrix of the variables, that is x equal to xy, and b is the column matrix of the constants, so b equal to 1, 4. Each equation in this pair geometrically represents a straight line because these are linear equations. Now, to draw the graph of the two straight lines, we need to get at least 2 points on each. So, the points can be calculated. Consider the equation x minus y equal to 1. Put x equal to 0, you get y equal to minus 1. And put y equal to 0, you get x equal to 1. So, 0, minus 1 and 1, 0 are 2 points on the line x minus y equal to 1. Now, consider the linear equation x plus 2y equal to 4. As before, we find 2 points on this line. You put x equal to 0, you get y equal to 2. And when you put y equal to 0, you get x equal to 4. So, 0, 2 and 4, 0 are 2 points on the second line. So, these points can be marked on the graph, and the lines corresponding to these two equations can be drawn. Okay, so the straight line corresponding to x minus y equal to 1 is through the points 0, minus 1 and 1, 0, and the straight line corresponding to x plus 2y equal to 4 is through the points 0, 2 and 4, 0. These two straight lines will intersect at the point 2, 1. So we say that the solution of the pair of linear equations is x equal to 2 and y equal to 1. Now, the same pair of linear equations can be written in the following form also. X multiplied to 1, 1. See, this is the first column of the coefficient matrix, and minus 1, 2 is the second column of the coefficient matrix. Minus 1, 2 is the second column of the coefficient matrix. So, the given pair of linear equations can also be written as x times 1, 1 plus y times minus 1, 2 equal to 1, 4. And 1, 4 is the column matrix of the constants in the given pair of linear equations. Now what does it mean? So you will mark 1 1 and minus 1 2. So 1 1 A represents that point, minus 1 2 B represents that point, and the other one 1 4 it is represented by the point C. So you have three vectors OA, OB and OC, and you know OC can be resolved in the directions of OA and OB. So for that you draw lines parallel to the given vectors OA and OB through the point C, and you will get all these. You get one side of the parallelogram to be a suitable multiple of the vector OA, and the other side it is not a multiple of OB, it is OB itself. So you can see here the vector OC is sum of two vectors, and the two vectors are suitable multiples of OA and OB. Now, treating the column matrices as vectors, 1 1 will denote OA, and minus 1 2 will denote OB, and 1 4 will denote OC, and that's what we saw in the graph. Then from the solution we get 2 times OA plus OB equal to OC. So there is a geometrical meaning for the pair of linear equations in two variables. The column of A is the image of the basis vector 1 0. So when you multiply the coefficient matrix with the column matrix 1 0, column vector 1 0, you get the vector or column matrix corresponding to the point A. And similarly, the standard basis vector 0 1 is multiplied by the matrix A, and that will give you the point B. Then solution of the pair will be the scaling factors used in the linear combination. Now we are in a position to define a linear transmission. A linear transmission is a function T from a vector space X to another vector space Y over the same field F, satisfying the condition T of alpha u plus beta v equal to alpha tu plus beta tv, where u and v are elements of X and alpha beta are elements of F. If the vector spaces X and Y are equal, we will call the linear transmission a linear operator. So linear operator means it's a linear transmission from a vector space to itself. The condition T of alpha u plus beta v equal to alpha tu plus beta tv can also be put in a different way as T of u plus b equal to tu plus tv and T of alpha u equal to alpha tu. Suppose T from R2 to R2 be given as T of x1 x2 equal to x1 plus x2 x2 minus x1. We will check whether T is a linear operator or not. So for that we take the vectors u and v, u equal to x1 x2 and v equal to y1 y2 in R2, and alpha be a scalar in R. Clearly u plus v equal to x1 plus y1 x2 plus y2 and alpha u equal to alpha x1 alpha x2. So checking the condition T of u plus v equal to tu plus tv. T of u plus v equal to u plus v already you have found T of the pair x1 plus y1 x2 plus y2. But what is the expression for T x1 x2? First coordinate plus second coordinate, that is the first coordinate of the image, and second coordinate of the image is the difference between the second coordinate and first coordinate. So here for this point x1 plus y1 x2 plus y2, the image will be first plus second, that is x1 plus y1 plus x2 plus y2, that is the first coordinate. x2 plus y2 minus x1 plus y1, and that is equal to x1 plus y1 plus x2 plus y2, that is the first coordinate. x2 plus y2 minus x1 minus y1. Now, what is tu plus tv? Tu is written here, tv is written here. Tu plus tv will be same. So, the two equations 1 and 2 will give you t of u plus v equal to tu plus tv. Now, we will find whether t of alpha u equal to alpha tu is satisfied or not. So, that is also done similarly, and we will get t of alpha u equal to alpha tu is satisfied. This will tell you the transmission T is a linear transmission. Now, let us see how this linear transmission is expressed as a matrix. For this, the action of the linear transmission on the standard basis vectors is considered. So, T acting on 1, 0 is equal to 1 minus 1, and T acting on 0, 1 equal to 1, 1. The 2 by 2 matrix formed by the images of the standard basis vectors as columns will be 1 minus 1, 1, 1. And we will see that this will be the matrix corresponding to the linear transmission T. Let us check it. This was the matrix we obtained in the previous step. So that matrix is multiplied with the column matrix x1, x2. The output will be x1 plus x2, x2 minus x1, and that was the way we defined the image of the ordered pair x1, x2 by the transmission T. So we say that 1, 1 minus 1, 1 is the matrix associated to the linear transmission T. By choosing another basis, we get the corresponding matrix. The matrices for the same linear transmission corresponding to two different bases are related, and that makes another part of the study in linear algebra. That means how the relationship is and what are the properties of the relationship, all these can be studied, and that form another part of linear algebra, and we won't go to that side in our discussion today. If A is a 2 by 2 matrix and X is a 2 by 1 column vector, then AX is a 2 by 1 column vector. Why? Because you have observed that a 2 by 2 matrix is a linear transmission or linear operator on R2, and elements of R2 are 2 by 1 column vectors, and 2 by 2 matrix will be then transforming points or 2 by 1 column vectors to 2 by 1 column vectors. So a 2 by 2 matrix can transform points on the plane to points on the plane. Similarly, a 3 by 3 matrix can transform points in the 3-dimensional space to points in the 3-dimensional space. Any point on the plane can be expressed or represented using INJ. Recall that I is the column matrix 1, 0 and J is the column matrix 0, 1. Suppose we want to understand the geometrical effect of a 2 by 2 matrix, we find the product of the matrix with the corresponding column matrices of the two unit vectors. The matrix multiplied to the 0 column vector produces the 0 column vector itself. It means that the linear transmissions won't alter origin. That means origin is unaltered by multiplication with the matrix corresponding to the linear transmission. So consider the 2 by 2 matrix A 0, 1, 1, 0. We will find out what will be the images of different points 0, 0, 1, 0, that is a standard basis vector, and 0, 1, that is another standard basis vector, and 1, 1. And these 4 points 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1 and 1, 1 will form the 4 corner points of the unit square on the first quadrant. So what is image of origin under the matrix. So that is 0, 0 itself. Matrix multiplied to 1, 0, that is equal to 0, 1. So image of the standard basis vector 1, 0 is the other standard basis vector 0, 1, and A multiplied to 0, 1 will produce 1, 0. That means the second basis vector is mapped to the first basis vector, and 1, 1 is not changed by this transformation. So the unit square is transformed to the unit square itself. We will see the figure. This is done. 1, 0 is changed to 0, 1. 0, 1 is changed to 1, 0. If you look at the action of the matrix on the vector xy, we get A xy equal to 0, 1, 1, 0 multiplied to xy, and that is yx. It means what? The point xy is converted to the point yx. Xy is converted to the point P xy is converted to the point Q yx. And when you do that, all points on one side of the line y equal to x will move to the other side of the line y equal to x. Or this is actually reflecting points of the plane about the line y equal to x. So the essence of our discussion is the matrix 0, 1, 1, 0 is making a reflection about the line y equal to x. So this is what you get in the form of matrix equation. Now consider the matrix minus 1, 0, 0, 1. And minus 1, 0, 0, 1 acting on the column matrix xy equal to minus xy. So there is a geometrical meaning for it. A xy and the point B minus xy. So the point A was converted into the point B. So in this conversion, what you actually observe is all points on the right side of y-axis are moved to the left side of y-axis, and correspondingly the points on the left side of y-axis are moved to the right side of y-axis. Okay, so the process is reflection about the line y-axis. So the matrix minus 1, 0, 0, 1 will reflect points about the y-axis. Now reflection about the x-axis will be corresponding to the matrix 1, 0, 0, minus 1. So it's not by just magic I am getting all these matrices. So you have to follow the earlier principle. How the standard basis vectors are converted. So let us see the reflection about the x-axis means points on the upper side of the x-axis will be moved to points on the lower side of x-axis. So a point xy will be converted to a point x minus 5. Okay. Now reflection about the origin. Reflection about the origin means the point xy will be converted to the point minus x minus 5, and for that the corresponding matrix will be minus 1, 0, 0, minus 5. Now if you take a rotation through 90-degree anti-clockwise, okay, so imagine I just follow the cursor I am moving on the screen. This is a small triangle you can see below the shaded region. If you move this triangle 90-degree anti-clockwise, you will get this triangle. That means the triangle which can lie on the right side of the shaded portion here. And by the rotation through 90-degree anti-clockwise, the entire shaded portion will be moved to entire shaded portion in the first quadrant will be moved to a shaded portion of equal size in the second quadrant. Now the transmission will be making the vector xy to minus by x. So vector xy is taken to minus by x means the point 1 0 will be moved to 0 1 and the point 0 1 will be moved to minus 1 0. So you can write the corresponding matrix by the previous discussion. You get the corresponding matrix is 0 minus 1 1 0. So let us check 0 minus 1 1 0 multiplied to the matrix xy is equal to minus by x. Now rotation through an angle phi anti-clockwise. The corresponding matrix will be cos phi minus sin phi cos phi. You can check easily. This transmission transforms a vector xy into x cos phi minus phi sin phi, and that is the first coordinate, x sin phi plus phi cos phi. Transmissions of these type are generally called linear transmissions. So we have seen many examples of transmissions. The reflection about the line y equal to x, reflection about the y axis, reflection about the x axis, reflection about the point origin, and rotations. All these are linear transmissions. And there is one more figure making the idea of rotation through an angle phi clear. And suppose you have the matrix A, which is cos phi minus sin phi cos phi, and this is the matrix representing a rotation through an angle phi anti-clockwise. Can you guess what will be a square, a cube, etc., a raised to n, etc.? It's very clear. If you make a rotation, you will get the matrix cos phi minus sin phi cos phi. If you apply the matrix 2 times, you will make a rotation phi and again phi. That means you will make a rotation 2 phi anti-clockwise. And so the corresponding matrix will be cos 2 phi minus sin 2 phi and sin 2 phi cos 2 phi. A cube will be cos 3 phi minus sin 3 phi sin 3 phi cos 3 phi. And so a raised to n will become the cos n phi minus sin n phi sin n phi cos n phi. Let us see what is the effect of the matrix 1 3 0 1 is. It's a linear transmission. Being matrix, it's a linear transmission from R2 to R2, and the unit square, that means the square with the 4 corner points as 0 0 1 0 1 1 and 0 1 is transformed like this. So the image of the square will be such a parallelogram, and this is called a shear transmission. So you call this effect to be a shearing. So here the shearing is towards the right side. So suppose you keep a photograph in the unit square and you apply the matrix. What will happen? The photograph will get shear. So when the photograph gets a shear, it makes a deformed photograph. So what happens if you make a very large shearing? Very large shearing means the parallelogram will be of this type. That means it will be a very narrow, shaded or thick line inclined to the x-axis. The appearance will be a very narrow line making some angle with the x-axis, and actually that line will be image of the shaded unit square. And the shear can be horizontal if the matrix is an upper triangular matrix. So the example we considered was having such a type of shearing towards the right side, and the triangular matrices, upper triangular matrices, will make a right shearing if the determinant is positive and a left shearing if the determinant is negative. You can observe that. You can draw different, or you can take different examples of such matrices. And shearing is actually giving you a chance to deform a photograph. See, what's the use of deforming a photograph? Suppose you want to send someone's photograph without others notice. What you do is you will make a deformed photograph. So in the deformation, if the shearing is very large, the extent of shearing is very large, you won't get the sheared photograph to be looking like a photograph. People won't observe it as a fancy thing. So the photograph will be sent to your destination unnoticed. The others won't notice it. So there is a process of image transferring using matrices. So matrices are having one application in the field of image transfer. Okay, and the shearing can be made in a vertical way also. For that, lower triangular matrices are used. Now, vector spaces is an abstract way of describing the idea of vectors that we are familiar with in the lower classes. Matrices are rich to describe the geometry of all the real plane and the three-dimensional space. Keeping these ideas in mind, you can continue the study further in vector spaces of higher dimensions and then linear transformations on such spaces. And we can say that vector spaces are having applications nowadays in many useful fields of computer applications, signal transmission, image processing, etc. And I am just opening a discussion in this line, and I wish you all the success and thank you.